Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're unpacking what's arguably the absolute ultimate cosmic mystery. I mean, where did the universe actually come from? And what exactly existed before there was an everything? Well, strap in, because we're going to explore a concept that's literally going to stretch the very limits of how you think about reality.
Let's dive straight in by asking the big one. How did the universe emerge from absolutely nothing? It's a question that's kept philosophers and physicists up at night for centuries, right? Think about it. If there was truly nothing, no matter, no energy, no space, no time, how on earth do you get a universe filled with billions of galaxies? To figure that out, we actually need to fundamentally rethink our basic understanding of what nothingness even is.
So, Section 1, the enigma of nothingness.
To tackle this massive philosophical problem of cosmic origins, we're looking at a highly specific theoretical framework from Brazilian researcher João Holland de Barcellos, who's affectionately known as Jocax. He proposed something called the Jocaxian Nothingness, or JN for short. And look, this isn't just your standard empty void. We're talking about a theoretical physical system completely devoid of matter, energy, space, or dimensions. But here's the real kicker. It's also completely devoid of natural laws or limiting rules. It is the absolute absence of everything. We're talking pure, unadulterated anarchy of rules.
Which brings us to Section 2, the Jocaxian Nothingness.
Now that we know what JES actually is, let's look at how this highly specific type of nothingness operates. Because, when there are zero rules, things get weird very quickly. This comparison brilliantly illustrates the difference between how we normally think of nothing and how Jocax thinks of it. So on one hand, you have trivial nothingness. That's the common, sterile nothingness we usually imagine. But it secretly harbors an implicit rule, which is nothing can happen. On the flip side, the Jocaxian nothingness operates completely differently. Because there's absolutely no rule or law prohibiting creation, it's actually incredibly dynamic and fertile. Literally any event can originate from it purely randomly, simply because there's no law to step in and say, stop.
Section 3, the origin of the universe.
So how does this dynamic anarchy actually build into the creation of our cosmos? Well, it happens through a process the author calls the natural selection of laws. First off, because there's no rule stopping it, random fluctuations, which Jocax actually calls schizocreations, spontaneously generate new universes and random logical rules right out of the JNN. Then, step 2, a lot of these random creations are born highly unstable or they completely contradict themselves, so they just instantly self-destruct. But thirdly, if a set of physical laws happens to emerge that is completely consistent and stable, kind of like the physical laws of our universe, it survives and prospers. Basically, we exist because our universe happened to win this ultimate cosmic lottery of stability.
All right, Section 4, JN versus quantum vacuum. Now, if you follow modern science, you might be sitting there thinking, hey, physics already explains this. And what's really fascinating here is pitting modern science directly against this philosophical framework. A lot of physicists, like Lawrence Krauss for example, argue that the quantum vacuum is the nothingness that birthed the universe. But here's the catch. The quantum vacuum is actually full of energy, and it's governed by the pre-existing laws of quantum mechanics. It requires rules to already be there. The Jocaxian nothingness takes a massive step further back. It requires zero pre-existing laws, and uniquely, it actually explains where the laws of physics themselves came from in the very first place.
Moving on to Section 5, paradoxes and criticisms.
Of course, any theory that flat out claims there are no rules is going to face some intense academic pushback. Let's rapid fire through the severe logical traps critics use to attack this. First up, the rule paradox. If the core premise is there are no rules, isn't that phrase itself a rule? If so, the whole theory contradicts itself right out of the gate. Second, chaotic infinity. Statistically speaking, a ruleless void should just generate infinite chaos, right? So why is our universe so perfectly organized over billions of years? And third, the scientific critique of unfalsifiability. Karl Popper's famous criteria dictates that a theory must be testable. And while you can't exactly travel to before the Big Bang, isolate a piece of space, and remove all laws of physics to test the JN in action.
Furthermore, we absolutely have to address the classic philosophical objection that dates all the way back to antiquity. Ex nihilo nihil fit. From nothing, nothing comes. For centuries, philosophers have argued that true nothingness has no energy or active power to generate or fabricate a universe. It just sits there.
So how does the author actually defend against these pretty sharp critiques? Well, Jocax replies to the rule paradox by separating a law from a state. Think about it using his empty room analogy. If a room is completely empty, being empty is simply the factual state of the room at that exact moment. It is not some rigid law that violently prohibits objects from entering, right? Therefore, the state of nothingness can spontaneously change without breaking any laws, because a state is simply a fact, not a prohibition. Things aren't being actively generated by the nothingness, they simply arise from it purely statistically, just because there's no law forbidding them from doing so.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 6, the author's revelation.
So, while reviewing the source material for this, which, by the way, is actually a fascinating transcript of an artificial intelligence debating these very paradoxes with a human user, we stumble upon this incredible realization. During their debate, the AI was trying really hard to force the Jocaxian Nothingness to obey human logic. But the user pointed out a profound contradiction. If the JN truly has an absolute absence of laws, then it doesn't even have to follow human logic. By demanding that the origin of the universe make logical sense to us, we're basically slapping a human filter on the infinite. The real JN could generate completely illogical realities, reality where time runs backward and forward simultaneously, or where pure contradictions actually exist. Our perfectly logical universe is really just one tiny random drop in an ocean of infinite, totally illogical possibilities.
And then we get this massive twist. The user who was correcting the AI in our source material typed 3 simple words, "I am João." Yeah, the human user debating the AI was João Holland de Barcellos himself. The actual creator of the theory stepped right in to shatter the logical boundaries that the AI was trying so hard to impose. He revealed that in the official FAQ of his theory, it is explicitly documented that the JN absolutely does not need to follow logic. Our logical analysis of the JN? It's merely a limitation of the human intellect trying to comprehend a system that literally has no premises.
It's just a breathtaking moment that fundamentally shifts the entire scope of the theory, and it leaves us with this staggering final question. Is human logic simply a limitation we place on the infinite? When we stare into the ultimate void of cosmic origins, perhaps the truest form of nothingness is one so absolutely free, so completely boundless that even making logical sense is a rule it simply doesn't have to follow. Think about that for a while, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.